And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 168th episode, recorded on Tuesday, August 26, 2025. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined by my co-host, Kathy Amos. And tonight we will be taking an early look at what may be the preseason number one team in the country, the UCLA Bruins, for this upcoming season. But as usual, we'll start our episode with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, I had a couple of things actually, kind of a two-parter here I'm going to go with on our banner moment. The first one was again announced on Twitter the other day that Alexa Golbe and Sarah Scalia will be playing as teammates in France this year for a team in Lyon in the top French league. And then also wanted to put out there, as I thought was a banner moment, Grace Berger has been starting for the Dallas Wings here as of late, not putting up huge numbers, but she has been starting on a team in the WNBA and contributing. So we'll see what the future holds for her after she goes down to Australia later this winter to play, I believe, for a team in Australia. So our Hoosier Proud banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating its products for schools in its existing line. You are bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you are supporting Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, that's HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And in some news around the program, Dan Dardian has been named the team and recruitment analyst. He has had several stops, most recently as assistant director of basketball operations for Vanderbilt's men's team. We mentioned already about Grace Berger starting, but she had a season-high 11 points for Dallas 2 days ago. And then class of 2026 recruit Gigi Battle from Florida named IU in her top 4, along with Iowa, North Carolina State, and Georgia. And again, nice to see us in the battle here, especially with North Carolina State and Iowa, two teams that have been traditionally, kind of with IU here, tournament teams. Georgia's an interesting one, but being from Florida, I can see why. Might keep Georgia in there. But Kathy, we're going to throw it over to you for the Amos angle and any thoughts you may have so far.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks. Nice to see you again tonight. Happy late August, if anyone can believe it. We're getting into football season here. I don't know about anyone else, but check local listings. Weather's turned much nicer here in the middle of Iowa. So happy to get rid of some of the heat and humidity we've been dealing with for, it seems like, forever. So starting to get some more news coming out. Yeah, we have another team and recruitment analyst. He kind of has stopped around quite a lot. I think Dan Dardarian, maybe, and last with the Vanderbilt's men team as the assistant director of operations. So that was an interesting hire, I thought. I didn't read a whole lot other than the article announcing his coming, but yeah, and Gigi Battle coming to us in terms of the top 4 getting in there. I know we're getting our names mentioned a lot more in these top 26 recruits with a lot of schools that we find pretty familiar, and this is another example. So I like throwing that in there. But I think for me, with you, Jeff, the banner moment was a tie between Sarah Scalia and Alexa getting to play together again. Well, maybe not again, actually. I don't think they ever actually played together. So playing together for the first time. And then Grace Berger having that season high 11 points for Dallas. I really am enjoying seeing the fact that she's been getting to start and hopefully earn her way into a WNBA contract for next year. So just a couple things for me. Yeah. So excited to talk about UCLA. I think you're right. I would not be surprised if they're the preseason number 1 when the official rankings come out later this fall.
Yeah, and interesting to add staff this late in the year. The season. Yeah. I mean, practices are a little over 6 weeks away per se. So, or roughly, I should say. And so to kind of add staff at this point, I won't say strange, but just kind of a late hire. But I do think one thing, as you mentioned, talking about Gigi Battle, I think you can see the influence of the assistant that we hired from Alabama here a little bit, with his contacts, I'm assuming down in the deep South in Florida, places like that, getting Indiana maybe into some areas that it hasn't been as prominent in. When you kind of look at the roster, the Indiana roster has expanded out over the last few years, but when you really get down to it, a big chunk of the Indiana roster had still basically come out of the Midwest. Indiana, some Ohio kids in Wisconsin, Illinois. Obviously, McKenzie came in from Maine, but just seemed like a lot of it's still based in the Midwest for the most part.
Yeah, and then a couple international players every once in a while sprinkled in there to kind of round it out. So, yeah, it was definitely an interesting hire too. So I'll be curious to see how that is and try to, watch a little more closely as some of these recruitments go on and stuff to see. We've had two hires now, one specifically for, I believe, for his recruiting, and then now another coach for recruitment analysis. So I think they clearly are prioritizing some of their staff around recruiting and trying to bolster that up a little bit more. And so we don't have this, turnover and transfer portal reliance that maybe we'll see coming into this year.
So let's talk about the Bruins, Kathy.
Let's do it.
So
you want me to start or you want to go?
I'll start here and I'll kind of lead you into the players a little bit.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. Right.
So last year, UCLA won the Big Ten tournament. I believe finished second in the Big Ten, actually, because they lost two of the three games they lost were to USC, both the games in the conference. Indiana came into Bloomington, defeated Indiana last year in Bloomington. And what was really a pretty good game, but Indiana just was not at that level for them. But they finished 34-3, including second, as I said, the Big Ten, winning the Big Ten tourney. Lost to UConn in the Final Four, 85-51, and what I commonly refer to now as the Paige Becker's victory tour, because Paige put up a huge game that day. Currently projected in Charlie Cream's way too early bracketology as a number one seed. And right now I would think, Kathy, you have to be the number one overall seed probably in Charlie bracketology. So they had 6 kids, though. This is the hard thing. They are going to be seen as possibly the number one team in the country. And I personally think they should be the number one preseason team. But they had 6 kids transfer out. So, Kathy, why don't you talk about some of those transfers that went out in the portal?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the thing that for me the most interesting is the difference. I kind of grouped their transfer outs into 2. The first group is all of their freshman class. So they had 4 freshmen that came in last year, and all 4 of them are transferring out. And for those of you, that have been paying attention to Indiana women's basketball, know that we were, the recipients of one of those transfers with Big Z coming over to us from UCLA. But those 4 freshmen last year, honestly, just didn't get a whole lot of playing time, and they didn't really contribute a whole lot. So you kind of have that whole group that just must have seen that they probably weren't going to have as much of a role in this coming season, looking at who's coming back, which we'll get into, and who's, also coming as both freshmen as well. They probably just didn't see a path forward where they're going to get a lot of playing time. So, but all 4 to lose an entire class was interesting. The other interesting piece was they lost 2 very key players. One of them a starter in London Jones. So she started almost every game for them last year. She started 31 out of their 37 games. She averaged 8.5 points per game, 35% shooting from 3-point land. And she even set a program record with 84 3-pointers made. And Jeff, if I remember, help me keep me honest, between the 2 that transferred out, I think London ended up at USC.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, yeah. We'll see if we can fact check while we're. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. And then there's other transfer out was Janiah Barker. Now, Janiah did not play or start, but she did start 3 games, but she was really considered like their 6th player. She was almost always the first bench player that came in. She was a 6'4" forward for them. She had great length. So she didn't put up a whole lot in terms of points, 7.5 points, 6 rebounds, but she did that in 17 minutes. And I remember watching them play, and I really always loved Barker. I thought she was really athletic, and I thought she brought a lot to the defensive end for them. And a lot of the things that we talk about that don't necessarily go into the stat lines, but I thought she added a lot. And so she ended up transferring out too. I can't remember where she ended up transferring to.
Tennessee, I think.
That sounds right. Yeah. I thought it was somewhere in the South somewhere. So those were the two that probably in terms of productivity were hurt them the most. But again, neither one of them were really double digit point productions, but they did give them some significant minutes. Like I said, 17 minutes for Janiyah. And then London Jones was, like, again, that starter, and she played 25 minutes per game. So we'll really have to look at their freshmen and transfer in to see what we think will replace those two. But those were the 6 transfers out that they had. So yeah, it does sound weird, doesn't it? Like, oh, here's your, I agree with you too. I think they're going to be our preseason number 1. And we're talking about how they lost 6 players from their team last year. So that just tells you how deep their team was last year. I think a little bit too that, again, 4 of their 6 players that transferred out really weren't contributors to the stat lines last year.
Yeah, I agree about the freshmen. And we talked a little bit about this with the Big Z preview we did back over the summer when she, as far as a transfer into Indiana. But I got to say, the London Jones transfer really did surprise me. I think for them, Kathy, I kind of want your opinion on this. The London Jones transfer almost was, to a certain degree, like Yarden transferring out for Indiana. This was a starter on a championship team, on a quality, a team that went to the Final Four. It's hard to make the argument that you're looking for a better opportunity when you're on a team that's going to be a favorite to go back to the Final Four. So I think that's the one that kind of stood out to me, even though people say she only averaged 8.5 points a game. Well, on that team that was loaded, that's a really good player that was getting, like you said, 25 minutes a game, was shooting the 3 for them. So I think that was the one that kind of shocked people. But I think it also just shows you, Kathy, where we are in this day and age with the transfer portal and NIL and things like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think of the 6, that's the one that stuck out to me as well in terms of being surprising. I was a little surprised with Janiyah Barker, but not terribly. I think she had already transferred in. That was the only year she played at UCLA. So it wasn't as much of a surprise, but I'm pretty sure London Jones had played 3 years there. At least, and if not, if she might. I
don't know if it's on your end, Kathy. You're kind of in and out on me right here. We'll kind of hope. You back, Kathy?
I think so. I had never left in my head. Can you hear me better now?
I was getting your screen. Yeah, a little bit. Your screen went blank on me for about 3-4 seconds. So
okay.
Why don't you try saying again, talking a little bit about London Jones, because you were breaking up, at least on my end.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, London Jones was the surprise as well. I think she had only played for UCLA during her career compared to Janiyah Barker, who was a transfer in for 1 year last year for them. So that was definitely a surprise. I think that the comparison you made to Yarden is spot on. Again, I mentioned she set a program record with 84 3-pointers made. That sounds awfully familiar of program making, setting people and then them transferring out, and not just transferring out, Jeff. The bigger surprise to me is that she went to the rival of USC on top of it. So just the poor, again, salt in the wound. Sounds very familiar. Yes.
And I don't remember the timing on a lot of this, Kathy, but it makes you wonder, looking at this as we are here in late August. London Jones transfers out. Did she transfer out before or after? Because I'll kind of take this next one. The big transfer in here in the portal for UCLA was Gianna Nepkins, who is a redshirt senior coming in from Utah, and started for most of the 3 years she really has been healthy or had time on the floor. She averaged 19 a game for a Utah team that made the tournament last year, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. So was this one where London Jones thought maybe she was going to lose time to a kid like Gianna, or did Gianna fill in? Was she recruited in to replace London? I don't remember the timing on this, but this was a heck of a pickup for Corey Klaus, the head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. You're taking, if you just make the comparison of bringing London Jones leaving and Janiyah coming in, Janiyah averaged 19.3 points per game. So again, I don't think she's going to be expected to do that at UCLA. That's probably not where she's going to come into play here, but that's a heck of a pickup for sure. But I think, Jeff, I want to say that London Jones transferred out first, but I wouldn't bet a whole lot of money on that. But I think that she did go out first before Janai. But maybe they were having conversations with London as well, that they were looking in the transfer portal, and she maybe saw the writing on the wall, and that's what sparked her to go anyway, even before Neepkins was announced as coming in.
Yeah, and this is for example, she scored 4 points against Indiana in the NCAA tournament game, for Utah last year, because that was a game that IU played the first round against them. I was trying to look up a little bit more because Kathy did the run sheet for this episode, and she does Kathy does all the run sheets for us, and appreciate their work. But she was shooting. She shot 50% from the field, and she shot 45% from three. And she was making. Trying to look here real quick on her 3-point percentage. She's a 40%, or excuse me. I'm trying real quick here to click on this. I started to look, thinking I wanted to see a couple more of her stats here. And my computer is now wanting to be a little slow. Come on. But I just, it's not like she's a guard. She's getting up, some volume of shots. Yeah, she averaged almost 7 threes a game, and she shot 45%. So they're picking up. I mean, she may not, like you said, Kathy, she may not average 19, but she's a legitimate threat. If she shoots anywhere near what she did, just on threes alone, she's going to score more than London Jones did. Yeah,
that's right. Here you go. She averaged 6.8 threes per game and made 3 of them for 44.8%. And like you mentioned, her 2-point percentage is pretty darn good too, at 57%. And that's the lowest of the last 3 years that she played. The year before that, 68%. And then her redshirt freshman year would be 58.2%. So, I guess she actually redshirted 23 through 24. She only played 6 games. So she must have had an injury in there.
Yes,
but yeah, I mean, she could definitely put up some points, and light it up. So I feel like, again, just on paper, not remembering a whole lot about Neepkins other than by name and a little bit, but watching or looking at the stats, I feel like that might be an upgrade over Jones. So then the question will become, how do they replace Barker? But again, not a whole lot in terms of points. I think it's more some of those intangibles that you'll be looking to replace for her.
Well, speaking about Barker and possibly being replaced, why don't you take their incoming freshman?
Yep. So they have 2 freshmen in particular. They had more than 2, but there's 2 that I just kind of wanted to point out. I didn't do a whole lot of research in terms of what they did in high school, but the headliner for their freshman class is Sienna Betts. And does that sound familiar? Yes, it does. That's because she is the little sister of Lauren Betts, who decided to come back for her senior year. And we'll talk more about her as well. Sienna was a huge get for UCLA. She was a top 10 recruit. And I think she's probably one that we're expecting to see quite a bit of production from the get-go. The other person to watch out for is Lena Bilic, I think is how you say her name. She's a guard. She's from Croatia, and she definitely did some playing over there, I believe, in their professional league over in Croatia, and was able to put up some points too. I didn't write them down here. So I don't have, like I said, a whole lot of information in terms of what kind of production they did. I think they had one other freshman, Jeff, but it didn't look like that they were, any kind of a top 50 recruit, but these 2 both were.
Yeah, and Betts' younger sister, I want to make sure I don't call her little. She's 6'4".
Yeah, she's not so little.
But she was the number 2 overall recruit in this class, and obviously it helps when you got older sister playing here. But another coup for Corey Klaus as the head coach at UCLA for a solid recruit. And as you mentioned, also the Lena Bilic, the guard from Croatia. If she turns out to be kind of the stereotypical European player, she's going to be pretty well-rounded. She's probably going to be able to shoot the 3 a little bit, and kind of have a above average IQ in terms of basketball IQ. So we'll see. But the other thing here also real quick, before we move on talking about the other returners, is I think Corey Klaus, we didn't really have this in the Rush Academy, so I'll throw this kind of to you as well. But for me, Corey Klaus has done a really good job with this program. And obviously it helps when your talent level goes up to where it has. But this is a program that I think we talked a little bit about last year in the preview that was on the run. And, they've made several tournaments in a row, kind of like IU. I think they made the NIT one time in that run. But this is a program that has really gotten up. And she, I think, I don't want to say has mastered per se NIL, but I think she is out in front on some of the NIL stuff in terms of recruiting and maybe hopefully trying to keep. And I think my judgment is Corey Klaus is like, I'm going to lose kids. She's going to try and keep it to a minimum, but she's going to lose a few kids in the portal now, because when you're successful, and like you said, some of the freshmen probably didn't play as much as they were hoping, they're going to go somewhere else. And now can you just replace them? And with that, but I just kind of your thoughts on Corey Klaus, because I really like the job she's done. By the way, Indiana goes to UCLA this year, so that game will be at Pauley Pavilion this year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think Corey Klaus has done just a really phenomenal job. I mean, UCLA on the women's side, they don't necessarily have the long history of success like their men's team does. And so she's definitely brought them to the forefront of not just the national media, but to recruits as well. And, now you think of women's basketball and some of the top perennial teams in terms of the most recent years, UCLA has got to come to mind. It's still interesting to think about the fact that last year was their first Final Four that they made. You would have thought that they would have had one sometime in their long history before that, but that was their first Final Four, and she was able to do that. And I think anytime you keep your name of your school out there in the forefront, especially with all the attention now in media that are really starting to pay attention to women's college basketball, it just does wonders for your recruitment. And we can see that coming in again with Sienna Betts. Like you mentioned, it doesn't hurt. I'm sure that her big sister was there, but it could have hurt too, right? It could have gone the other way and been like, I don't want to be in my big sister's shadow. I don't want to be there with her. But clearly this, I think, probably helped in their case. But I think there's a lot going on for, style of play. And like you mentioned, most likely NIL is coming into play. So overall, I think she's just easily one of the top coaches in the Big Ten. Candidly, I think that Big Ten probably has some of the best coaches in there, but she is definitely one of them for sure.
And real quick, Sean in the chat mob or the Workaholics here asked, since UCLA and USC will both be on the road this year on the West Coast, he wants to do. I don't think it matters which team we play first versus second on that trip. And assuming it will be the same trip, it would make sense. That was the way the Big Ten did it. If I remember right, last year for teams, it was trip to LA, then a trip to the Pacific Northwest. Me, no, unfortunately, I don't think it matters which one they play first. They're both going to be incredibly tough games. Obviously, more than likely, USC will, and we're going to talk about them in a couple, 3 weeks, will not have Juju Watkins, but they're still going to be very, very good. So I guess if from that standpoint, maybe USC would be a better one, but I honestly think it doesn't matter who they play first.
I don't think so. I'm with you. I don't think it much matters.
So let's move on then to the returners here, Kathy, and I'll let you kind of take those as well. And sure. I'm going to throw a name in for you after you get done, because you're going to focus on two, but I'm going to throw a third name in for you after you finish or get through these first two.
Okay, I'll be curious who your third is, because there's a third one on my brain too. So I won't mention her, and we'll see if it's the same one, or we might be talking four. Okay. But the two main ones are the two main headliners. Lauren Betts, who I think everyone has known, she led the team last year in points per game with 20.2 points per game, and she led the team in rebounds at 9.5 points per game. She did this while averaging 30 minutes a game. I think easily should have been in the conversation along with Juju Watts in terms of Big Ten Player of the Year. I would expect that preseason she might even be that preseason Big Ten Player of the Year coming into the year. And if not, she's got to be in the conversation receiving votes if she's not. Then the other person that we should definitely mention here is Kiki Rice. She was the other player that averaged double digits for them at 12.8 points per game. She also averaged 3.5 rebounds, but she was really high on the assist side and led the team in assists at 5 assists per game. And she also averaged 28 minutes per game. So those two definitely were the straw that stirred the UCLA drink last year. They had the most minutes per game of the entire team and led the team in scoring, rebounds, and assists between the two of them. So clearly the dynamic duo of Lauren Betts and Kiki Rice coming back, I think Lauren could have gone to the WNBA. So I think, her sister coming in probably had a lot to play with that. Maybe she had some things she wanted to prove, kind of like what you're talking about with Paige Beckers needing to come back and get some redemption as well. So I wonder if Lauren was to see if they can improve upon that Final Four, especially the way UConn just kind of had a beat down on them last year too. So there may be some redemption there for Miss Betts as well.
Yeah, right, and I would agree with you about Lauren.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I would agree with you about Lauren Betts. I think coming into the year with Juju being hurt, and Hidalgo, I believe, transferred out of Notre Dame, correct? And she might be in the conversation as well. I think Betts is going to be maybe the preseason favorite for the preseason player of the year, based on her stats with coming back from 20 points a game. I think you're right. I think part of her coming back is the idea of let's make one more run back to the Final Four and see if we can win it this time. Also, to a certain degree, I know they won Big Ten tournament, but they finished second in the league. They did not win the league. So I think that plays into it. And honestly, we talked about this a little bit last year or 2 years ago. We had this conversation at different times about Caitlin Clark. With NIL, Caitlin Clark was making as much money or more. She was making more money at Iowa than she would have been per se in the WNBA, at least, contractually.
Salary wise.
I think that for Lauren Betts, I think a lot of that plays out as well. That, I know some of the WNBA salary structures are getting redone and stuff, or they hope to get it redone. But I think for Lauren Betts, you're back one more year in school. You're not a professional per se, but you're getting paid, and you're probably, in her case, probably getting some decent NIL money. That is, with that. So that's one. I like Kiki Rice. I think Kiki Rice really, to me, is kind of the key at 13 points a game, 5 assists, 28 minutes a game, because they've got the size, they've got the other things going with it. But I think Kiki Rice just brings a dynamic part to their game. I mean, Lauren Betts, don't get me wrong, great player, but she's not the most athletic kid you're going to see on the floor, but she's very good at what she does, and she's a stud. Let's face it, she is a stud as a player. But I think Kiki Rice and some of the others bring a dynamic part to that team that, unfortunately for them, just fell apart on them in the Final Four game. And like I said, Paige Beckers had a game for the ages in that game. So, but anything else about those two you want to throw in?
Nope. I think we got it. Yeah.
Okay, the name I'm going to throw out here as the third person here is a returning starter, and that's Gabriela Jaquez. I think Jaquez is a kid that for most of the year last year she was averaging over double figures. She kind of, I don't want to say slipped, but she finished at 9.6 points per game. But on a team that was loaded, she didn't hunt shots per se. She didn't have to get up 15 to 20 shots a game, but she also averaged 5 rebounds, 2 assists. She shot 52% from the field, 35% beyond the arc, 83% at the line. So for me, Gabriela Jaquez, then you put her with Neneps is going to be I think she's going to play a big role this year.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing we didn't really talk about, but now that we've kind of laid out there, you also have Angela Dukalik, the other fourth starter that is coming back for them. Not only are they bringing back 4 of their 5 starters, they've got 2 really good, one especially one really good projected freshman, and you have a fantastic transfer coming in with Neepkins. You add all that up, like they also have a lot of experience on this team. So you have Lauren Betts, who's a senior. You have Kiki Rice, who's a senior. You have Gabriela Jaquez, who's coming in. She's a senior. Neepkins is a graduate senior. And then, so all of your, potentially projected starters are seniors or graduate seniors. And that's a lot of experience to be able to bring along your freshmen too, your 2 freshmen that, maybe are coming in, not to mention some of the other players that were maybe more role players that are lesser minutes, but are coming back. Like we didn't even talk about Tamia Gardner in there either, who came in and played quite a bit for them, averaging 18 minutes. So again, I think that it wasn't just, you hear they had 6 transfers out, and immediately your brain is like, oh my gosh, including 2 fairly big contributors to the team, and your brain's immediately like, oh gosh, they're probably going to take a step back. But they have so much coming back still. They were just so deep last year that, again, the 4 freshmen were not, factors for them for the most part. I just think that and then reloading between the transfer and the freshmen coming in, I think it's an easy expectation that they'll be, top of the seasons, if not number 1 preseason.
Whereas this year, like next year, we could be talking about of flow because you're talking possibly Betts is gone, Rice is gone, Neepkins will be gone. I mean, there's a lot of players. This roster next year may look a whole lot different than the roster this year.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I just named off 5 people that will all be graduating, and then you expect to lose some to the transfer portal on top of it. I would expect that, yes, they're going to, again, have to reload here with freshmen and transfer portals for the following season.
Yeah, and so, Kathy, real quick, I was looking at this, and before I mentioned, talk a little about their schedule. Anything you want to add about the players or the program in general before we talk a little bit about their schedule?
Nope, I haven't looked at the schedule, so I'll pull it up while you start us off.
Well, this is one of my frustrations with college basketball. They know who they're playing, but nobody really has their schedules online yet because the conferences haven't announced when exactly they're going to play. I get that. And my frustration more here is with the conferences than it is the universities themselves, because the Big Ten knows the schedule. All right, even if you don't know what the TV assignments are going to be, you could be putting the schedule out, or at least what the order is going to be. But we know that basically, as far as the conference schedule, UCLA is going to play the games at home that they played on the road last year, and they're going to go on the road for the games they played at home. And they'll play USC twice.
Yep.
That's the conference schedule. And again, I think right now for me, they're the preseason favorite. Austin, we had Austin on Render a couple weeks ago. He has them as the preseason favorite. I don't think anybody's really going out over their skis on that. But I quickly looked up and I could only find a couple things. But we're going to find out quite a bit about this UCLA team early in the season on November 26th and 27th, which I'm assuming is Thanksgiving weekend. There's in that area. They're going to play Texas on the 26th in Vegas. And then the next night they'll play either South Carolina or Duke. I would imagine it's going to be a winner loser thing. If they beat Texas, they get the winner of that South Carolina Duke game. If they lose, they get the loser of that game. That's 2 games in Vegas that I'm sure they're calling it the Players Era Festival in Vegas, and probably will be nationally televised in some realm. And then 3 days later, they host Tennessee at Pauley Pavilion. So that's the only part of the non-conference schedule I could get. But again, for the team that's probably going to be the preseason number 1 ranked team, you're more than likely going to end up with probably South Carolina in that second game, you hope. When you talk about a marquee matchup early, because you got to figure South Carolina is going to be in the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said Duke was in there as well?
South Carolina plays Duke in the other game on that first night.
Okay. Yeah, you would assume South Carolina wins that, but Duke has been, I think, coming on here recently too. So yeah, I wouldn't 100% count them out either, especially early on in the season. Like we remember South Carolina did go down pretty early on last year as well, although that was, I believe, to UConn. So it wasn't like they lost to a second tier team or anything. But yeah, so that is interesting. They definitely did not shy away in the non-conference for sure. And again, like that probably is good for a team that is wanting to come and make a deep run later into the year, into the tournament. And when you have a team, again, with so many veterans on it, they should be able to go out and handle that kind of pressure early on. So kudos to UCLA for scheduling that. That's quite the non-conference schedule.
And we don't know what the rest of their non-conference. And that's kind of my frustration too here. At least post your non-conference schedule, because and Indiana's in the same boat. We think because Butler has posted, there's been a posting about Butler playing in Bloomington this season. We think we're playing Butler, but just release the non-conference schedule.
That's
Tell
right.
us who you're playing.
What are we waiting for?
Even if you don't know the TV, you know what days you're playing. You're not scheduling somebody on August 27th to play in November. They know who they're playing. And again, I think some of this is obviously comes from sometimes this is the conference office, but sometimes the universities just got to be like, okay, we're playing Butler on this day in Bloomington. We'll let you know the time and the TV day. That's
right.
fine. But I do give credit to UCLA because they're going out and playing some quality opponents, but I would not be surprised if there's not at least one more quality opponent in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So,
because I can't imagine they're playing cupcakes the rest of the non-conference season.
Nope.
So, Kathy, any final thoughts here about the Bruins? Real quick, I'll just say I really enjoyed talking about this team because, again, I think the one thing for me is it's going to be fun to watch them, but this is a team that, as we said, we think it's going to be the preseason number one team. We think they're going to be the favorite. For me, they're the favorite to win the Big Ten. And I think when you're looking at them, you're expecting them to make another deep run into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. That would be exactly how I would sum it up. Again, you're bringing back 4 of your 5 starters. You're bringing in a really great transfer with Neepkins. You have a good, solid-looking freshman, as you mentioned, ranked second in her class, in Sienna Betts. And you have such a veteran team coming back on top of it. I just think that there's going to be some really high expectations on this team. So hopefully that seniority and experience will really help them be able to navigate through all of those expectations and lofty preseason rankings and accolades and everything that's going to be heaped upon this team come October-ish timeframe when all that comes out. Regarding the schedule, I 100% agree with you. There is really no reason for them not to be releasing at a minimum, like the non-conference games that people are scheduling, because those have to be at this point almost September set and ready to go. So I don't understand it either, Jeff. I don't know what we're waiting for. But back to UCLA, that's kind of my final thoughts for them. I just think that they're easily, to me, the hands down favorite to win the Big Ten, and then it's going to be a couple of handful of other teams kind of chasing them.
So Kathy and I will return on September 2nd, and we'll be taking a look at Maryland. That's next Tuesday. Hard to believe September coming around the corner here. Yeah. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Backhome Network, the @ symbol, youtube.com/@Backhome Network. You can also be a part of our private community. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logos. And a big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout the broadcast. I want to thank you for listening. I also want to thank Kathy for being here as my co-pilot again tonight. We'll be back to talk about IU hoops again with you next week. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right. That was fun, man. I think UCLA is going to be a fun team to watch too.
I think so.
So, yeah.
They're like a good team though. An injury here or there could really determine what happens to them. But so hey, real quick,
tournament.
Season 2 of the Kurt Signetti era begins on Saturday. I will be there. Right. I will 2:30 start kickoff for the Hoosiers on Saturday. I want to win. I want to see them win. But I want to get through these non-conference games with wins and no key injuries. It's football. You're going to pick up a few injuries, but no key injuries, no big injuries. Get through there as healthy as you can with that. So as well. So, and I've been on record, or maybe not on here, but I've been one that said that to friends and colleagues here in Rensselaer that honestly, I could see IU being 9-3 and really still being a better team than they were last year. It's just the schedule gets a little tougher this year because they got to to Penn State, they go to Oregon, and to Iowa. So you may actually be better, but your record may not, necessarily indicate it. So, but it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Kim and I have season tickets back. I used to have season tickets, and then my kids got older. I was like, I need to be available on Saturdays to do things. So, but what do you think, Kathy? I know you mentioned you're going to come in for the Michigan State game.
Yeah, so that'll be homecoming weekend. My husband and I are going that, and then we are going over to the Iowa game that will be here in Iowa City on the 27th of September. So we have tickets for that and our hotel because we weren't sure when the time was going to be announced. Right. They still haven't announced the time as well. And so interesting. Although I think I read that it's either going to be a noon or a 3:30 kickoff for that game. So at least it won't be a night game. So,
but yeah, that was strange. Football is strange because the Big Ten will not announce start times until about it's like 12 days out. So you get about a week and a half notice of when when those games will be.
That's right.
It's all based on TV.
TV. Yep. TV. So yeah,
I would not be surprised.
For sure.
I would not be surprised if IU's 4-0. If IU wins their first three, they have Illinois on the 20th. If they're 4-0 going to Iowa, that game may be a big noon kickoff type game.
Yeah, I think that's why they're kind of hedging their bets on that one too, Jeff. And Iowa's got, Iowa State in there beforehand too. So if they, Iowa State's coming off that big win over Kansas State this last weekend. And if Iowa goes, I think that's in Ames this year up in Iowa State. So if Iowa goes up there and beats Iowa State, you can have two ranked teams coming into Iowa City on the 27th. So yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. I think the schedule obviously is much harder. My thoughts on the three non-conference game is not just win them and without key injuries, but I really want to have some separation in those games and really be dominant because of all the stupid talk from how terrible our non-conference schedule is. And I just want to show everyone this year. And yes, the Iowa game for me personally, I've already had one friend say, well, we just want to expose Indiana as frauds. And so I've got already getting comments like that from people. So that one has a personal touch for me. So I'm looking forward to it. It's good. So
we're going to get out of here, everybody. It's been a great show. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Good night, all. Take care. Happy Labor Day weekend.